Okay, as usual with 60-minute meetings, we start with the daily things and monthly things which are happening with Intermanager. I have to admit we haven't had 60-minute meeting for some time. There were different reasons for that, but members were very keen to restart our 60 minutes. We are not doing them every week, as you can see. This one we will have a space of 3-4 weeks. We are okay with calendar now for another 4 meetings. And no doubt today, if I can get the IT sorted, you will all receive calendar appointments for next meetings. I'm having a bit of an IT issue because Teams is not very good with number of people we are inviting, and I'm struggling with it because we've got more than 250 people registered with interest. For all those of you who haven't been on a 60 meetings, this is our meeting, this is members meeting. We do have agenda, which we are loosely trying to follow. But whenever you feel that you need to say something, just put your electronic hand up and I will attend to you and give you a floor. We always have a theme, and today we've got a Magna Carta and we've got a Captain Ronald with us, and he will be talking in a second as soon as we finish with our business of Intermanager. And then you will be given a floor because there will be questions and an answers session. So as far as Intermanager is concerned, we have just been to London last week. And when I say we, I mean quite a lot of our executive committee members with President who spoke on several occasions. And I'm delighted to report all had a very, very positive feedback. Vice President was there as well, attending many things, many events, and I was speaking at different conferences. I think the split was that Sebastian was talking more on a technical issues, uh, definitely decarbonization and ship management, and I was concentrating on a softer issues, basically seafarers. So I attended meetings with Vista, extremely interesting meeting in London, absolutely blown away by the quality of that meeting and the caliber of questions and session was absolutely fabulous. Mental health of seafarers and seafarers safety. These were my topics, and I was talking a lot about decriminalization and closed spaces and safety in general. But decriminalization, including abandonment of ships, was very high on many events agendas. So that's where we represented our members, and that's what we concentrated on. And this week we are starting with 60 minutes meeting. Next one will be in 3 weeks, and then it will follow. We always the same. We start 9 o'clock in UK time to give a chance for the Philippines, Hong Kong, Singapore, but also for the early risers in US. They have to be really early risers, and especially East Coast, because West Coast has no chance. Canada has a problem with us as well. One issue which I would like to raise, because it was raised with me and it has been already processed in a way, is the petition which you all have seen regarding visas for US visas for our seafarers. The problem is not as acute in many areas as we originally thought. However, we do have nations which are being disadvantaged. And the letter was sent to the US government, and I haven't had a response yet, but I believe it will take 2 weeks. And then we have a mechanism in place to chase this message, and it will be chased by US citizens, somebody in US fairly highly ranked up, who promised to help us and make sure that actually our petition is being read and acted on. On the same issue, staying now, I will most probably ask many members on a message, not necessarily today, but I would like to measure the temperature in a room. Are you, ladies and gentlemen, seeing any problems with your seafarers being refused entry to US? The reported case I have is then seafarers being accused of pornography involvement or anyway being this being used as an excuse. If not, then be aware. Obviously, this report comes from the Filipino seafarers, but I just wonder whether US is now targeting Filipino seafarers, or it is just because Filipinos are reporting it, this is happening, and the other nation operators are not saying anything. If there is anybody, and maybe you don't want to speak up, then send me a message, obviously. But we will concentrate, and I think because there is a requirement for me, I will go to all members and ask this question, whether you guys are seeing any problems with sending seafarers to US and being rejected, refused entry. Okay, I see Karen. Yes, please.
Yes, we have actually like several cases which started in July of last year. Filipinos having been charged of child pornography, and some are able to still go to the vessel, and they were asked to go down and accompanied by CBP, and eventually got deported. Some, they're just up to the immigration area and sent back and deported, allegedly due to child pornography. One of the most the common issues here is that anybody who has been seen with photos, for example, one complained that the photo that they were actually showing them that it's child pornography was a photo of his child. Okay, they were kissing the child, but as a little child, it's common with the Philippines that sometimes they don't have, like, underwears, etc. But it's a baby, it's a child, so it's considered already as child pornography. At the moment, we already have about 120 cases, and still continues. There was also one issue that has been detained. Some of them have been jailed, about 4 or 5 from my group. So basically, these are our issues. But what we discovered is that it's not just for Filipinos. There were also Indians, Sri Lankans, and other nationalities that were also accused of child pornography.
Karen, thank you. That boosts my confidence. Then there is definitely an issue and we need to look into it. Therefore, I will go out and I'll ask members and see what we can do about that. I do remember having issues with the Arab countries for that very reason, that sometimes there were pictures on a phone found of yourself with your wife on a beach, for example, not necessarily naked, but quite open for the Western societies to be okay with those pictures, and seafarers having an issue with it. So do you remember we used to issue some sort of a guidelines for people not to carry on them in their wallets pictures which could be deemed as inappropriate in Arab countries. Okay, thank you. Any other issue of intermanager interest before we go to Ronald? No. Ronald, over to you. You've got 10, 15 minutes, and then obviously we will grill you. So over to you, sir.
Okay, let me see my presentation.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, can you see it now? Can you hear me loud?
Yeah, loud and clear, and we
Yeah.
can see you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon to all the members of Intermanager. I'm honored to be your presenter today, and looking forward to a meaningful discussions and valuable insight as I share with you the Magna Carta of Filipino Seafarers. In this slide, you can see the timeline and brief summary of when the Magna Carta law was enacted, and including the preparation and effectivity of the implementing rules and regulation. So it was on September 23, 2024, when the Magna Carta was signed into law by the President Marcos. On September 26, it was published in the newspaper of general circulation. And on October 12, it is the effectivity of the Republic Act 12021, known as the Magna Carta for Filipino Seafarers. January 8 is the signing of the implementing rules and regulation, and it was published the following day, and on January 25, 2025, the law and the implementing rule was effective. I shall be discussing the important provisions of the Magna Carta of Filipino Seafarers, or Republic Act 12021, and its implementing rules and regulation. The coverage includes Filipino seafarers who are engaged, employed, or who work in any capacity on board a ship or vessel plying international waters, whether Philippine registered or foreign registered. The implementing rules and regulations shall likewise include Filipino cadets in accordance with the provision of Chapter 18, or the Education and Training of Seafarers and Cadets of the Republic Act 12021. The implementing rules shall not cover Filipino seafarers on board the following categories of ships: warships and naval auxiliaries, government ships not engaged in commercial operation, ships of traditional build, as may be defined under existing rules and regulation, and fishing vessels. I shall now discuss the duties and responsibilities of the I'll now be discussing about the seafarer's right, duties, and qualification. The rights of the seafarers are enumerated, such as just terms and conditions, self-organization and collective bargaining, advancement of education and training, information of the standard employment contract, company policies, information to the next of kin, safe passage and safe travel, consultation, against discrimination, against harassment and bullying, pre-legal representation, grievance mechanism, immediate medical attention, access to communication, record of employment or certificate of employment, fair treatment, fair medical assessments, right to vote in national election. These are the enumerated rights of the Filipino seafarers. And on the duties, seafarers must comply with the terms of the contract, abide with company policies, follow chain of command on board ship, to be diligent, respectful, and morally upright, and to be healthy, disclose any pre-existing illness prior deployment on board. On the qualification, Marina to issue guidelines for domestic seafarers about minimum age, the pre-employment medical employment compliant, physical and mentally fit, properly certified as to training and qualification per STCW Convention 1978 as amended. Now, let me discuss the duties and responsibilities of the licensed manning agencies. Under Section 31 of the Magna Carta and Rule 6, Section 1 of the Implementing Rules and Regulation, only licensed manning agencies may engage in the recruitment and placement of overseas Filipino seafarers. Licensed manning agencies are not allowed to collect recruitment or placement fees and related costs directly or indirectly from the seafarer or their families. Manning agencies and the principal or ship owners are jointly and severally liable for any and all claims arising from the implementation of the employment contract. So these are the duties and of the manning agencies. Manning agencies also has to maintain an up-to-date registry of all seafarers recruited or placed through them, to be made available for inspection by the Department of Migrant Workers and the Maritime Industry Authority. We have also to inform seafarers of their rights and duties under their employment contract before or in the process of engagement. We need to allow domestic and overseas seafarers to examine their employment contracts and the standard employment contract respectively before and after signing, and furnish them a copy thereof. We have to ensure as far as practicable by way of insurance coverage or an equivalent mechanism that the ship owner has the means to protect seafarers from being stranded in a foreign port, and examine and respond to any complaint concerning the agency's activities and submit a written report on all unresolved complaints to the Department of Migrant Workers and the Marina within 30 days from receipt of such complaint. We need to establish a system of protection by way of an insurance equivalent mechanism to compensate seafarers for monetary loss due to the failure of the agency or the relevant ship owner under the seafarer's employment contract to meet its obligation to them. This shall mean monetary claims arising from the seafarer's employment on board. Seafarers shall continue to be covered by the provisions on the compulsory insurance for agency hired workers under Section 37A of Republic Act number 8042, otherwise known as the Migrant Workers and Overseas Filipino Act of 1995, as amended by Republic Act 10022 at no cost to seafarers. Manning agencies whose seafarer will be deployed on board vessels with policies issued by foreign insurance companies, including entities providing indemnity coverage to the vessel, shall submit a certificate or other proofs of cover from recruitment or manning agencies, provided that the minimum coverage under subparagraph A to I of Section 37A of Republic Act 8042 as amended by RA 10022 are included therein. Okay. Now let me go to the dispute resolution, which is very important. There should be an onboard grievance machinery and onshore grievance machinery. This is for a fair, effective, and expeditious settlement of any dispute. And for the mandatory conciliation for vessels with CBA, it will be handled by the National Conciliation and Mediation Board, or NCMB. And for vessels without CBA, it will be handled by the National Labor Relations Commission, or NLRC. On the determination of disability grading or fitness to work, when the seafarer suffers work-related injury or illness occurring between the date of commencing duty and the date upon which they are deemed duly repatriated, or arising from their employment between those dates and still requires medical attention upon repatriation, the seafarer must undergo a post-employment medical examination by a company-designated physician for treatment until the seafarer is declared fit to work or assessed disability grading. A seafarer who disagrees with the company-designated physician's final assessment may seek its reevaluation by a physician of choice who specializes in the illness or injury. If the seafarer's doctors issue a disability grading that is different or contrary to the medical findings of the company-designated physician, the seafarer must file within 30 days from receipt of the findings of the seafarer's doctor a written request with the Department of Migrant Workers to refer the conflicting medical grading to a third doctor. The third doctor shall be mutually selected by the employer and seafarer from a pool of Department of Health accredited medical specialists relevant to the injury or illness of the seafarer. The third doctor should be duly trained in the determination of maritime disability grading. In case there is no agreement between the parties on the appointment of a third doctor from the pool of the Department of Health accredited third doctors, the Department of Migrant Workers shall facilitate the appointment of the third doctor from the same pool. After due consideration of all the medical documents issued by the company and the seafarer designated physician and strict adherence to the schedule of disabilities as provided in the standard employment contract or the applicable CBA, as warranted, the third doctor shall issue a final disability grading which shall be binding upon the seafarer and the employer. Now we go to the execution, judgment, and monetary award. The decision granting a monetary award in a voluntary or mandatory arbitration or the National Labor Relations Commission must state the specific amounts for payment of the following. A, any salary of wages or wage. B, any statutory monetary and welfare benefits. C, any undisputed amount which is admitted by a party to be legally due to the other party. D, any disputed amount determined to be legally due to the seafarer. And E, damages, including moral damages, exemplary damages, nominal damages, attorney's fees, and other similar awards. The portion of the decision awarding items A, B, or C shall be immediately executory, even pending appeal or judicial review. Pending an appeal or judicial review, a writ of execution on items D, E shall only be issued if the judgment obligee posts a sufficient bond to ensure the full restitution of those amounts, and the bond shall be maintained by the obligee until final resolution of the appeal or judicial review, provided that in the event of the seafarer ultimately prevails on appeal or judicial review, the losing party shall immediately reimburse the total amount paid by the seafarer for the cost of the bond. However, if the seafarer loses, no such reimbursement shall be made. So that's on the execution. However, on the surety bond, the Department of Migrant Workers through the Agarang Kalinga at Saklolo para sa OFW or the Action Fund. Agarang Kalinga at Saklolo para sa OFW means immediate care and help for our overseas Filipino workers, may provide financial assistance to the seafarer depending on the final determination of maritime disability grading under Section 57 of Republic Act 12021 for the payment of premiums of the bond, either in full or in part. Pertinent guidelines for assistance in the payment of the premiums, including the availment process, amount, or length of validity, shall be issued by the Department of Migrant Workers after consultation with stakeholders, including the Department of Labor and Employment, National Labor Relations Commission, NCMB, shippers union, mining agencies, ship owners, or their representative within a reasonable period of time after the effectivity of this IRR. In this slide is the equally important provision, but I shall only discuss repatriation in the interest of time. You can also read the other provision in the IRR of the Magna Carta law. Repatriation. Under Rule 12, Section 1 of the Implementing Rules and Regulation, in all cases of repatriation, the effective seafarer shall be repatriated to the point of hire based on the travel itinerary arranged by the employer. In case of permanent or temporary incapacity or death, the seafarer or his or her remains shall be repatriated to the point of hire or the seafarer's place of domicile at the option of the seafarer or the seafarer's next of kin. All costs related to the repatriation and transport of the personal effects and remains of seafarer, including the provision of financial security in case of abandonment of seafarer, shall be borne by the ship owner or mining agency concerned. The ship owner or mining agency shall expedite the repatriation without prior determination of the cause of repatriation or termination of the seafarer's contract. In cases of emergency repatriation due to war, epidemic disaster or calamities, natural or man-made and other similar events, the Department of Migrant Workers and the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, in coordination with the Department of Foreign Affairs and in appropriate situation with all relevant stakeholders, shall undertake the same without prejudice to reimbursement by the responsible ship owner, principal, or licensed mining agency within 60 days from notice. Now we go to who are the agencies that will implement the Magna Carta law. Number 1 is Commission on Higher Education, Department of Foreign Affairs, Department of Migrant Workers, Department of Health, Department of Information and Communication Technology, Department of Labor and Employment, Philippine Coast Guard, TESDA, Home Development Mutual Fund, Marina, National Conciliation and Mediation Board, National Labor Relations Commission, National Maritime Polytechnic, Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, Public Attorney's Office, and the Social Security System. Now, this is another issue that a lot of seafarers this is very important to the seafarers because these are the allotments and remittances. So the seafarer is required to make an allotment which shall be payable once a month to the seafarer's designated allottee in the Philippines through any authorized Philippine bank. The employer shall provide the seafarer with facilities for the seafarer's designated allottees or at no expense to the seafarer. The allotment shall be at least 80% of the seafarer's monthly salary. For the purpose of the IRR, the monthly salary shall consist of basic wage plus fixed or guaranteed overtime. As you know, the previous requirement is just 80% of the basic wage. Now they have included either the fixed overtime or the guaranteed overtime. The employer may also provide facilities for the seafarers to remit any amount earned in excess of the seafarer's allotment, including back wages, if any, to the seafarers' designated allottees in the Philippines through any authorized Philippine bank. Under Rule 7, Section 6 of the IRR, the allotment shall be paid to the designated allottee in the Philippine currency at the rate of exchange at the time of remittance indicated in the credit advice of the local authorized Philippine bank, which information shall be provided to the designated allottees. Where a seafarer is held captive on or off the ship as a result of acts of piracy or armed robbery against ships, the wages and other entitlements under the seafarer's employment agreement or the relevant collective bargaining agreement, including the remittance of any allotments as provided by these implementing rules and regulation, shall continue to be paid during the entire period of captivity and until the seafarer is released and duly repatriated, or where the seafarer dies while in captivity until the date of death as determined under Philippine law. Now I'm going to the last few slides on the execution of judgment award. This is very important. Under the previous state of laws and rules, once the decision or resolution of the National Labor Relations Commission or the voluntary arbitrators of the National Conciliation and Mediation Board becomes final and executory, the same may already be enforced or executed against the owner. This is possible notwithstanding the fact that the owner still have a remedy of filing a petition for certiorari or petition for review before the Court of Appeals. The provision under the Labor Code and Rules of Court is deemed amended considering the new mandate under the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta now addresses the owner's concern about restitution, ambulance chasing, and prosecution of ambulance chaser. The reality is that once the seafarer gets the judgment award, they are not able to return the same in the event the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court reverses or modifies the judgment award. With the new setup, both the seafarer and the owners will be better secured in their rights. The notable features of the Magna Carta on execution of judgment award are the following. Any disputed amount determined to be legally due to the seafarer. For example, the company is willing to pay the seafarer $25,000 for his grade 6 disability as assessed by the company designated physician. Then the National Labor Relations Commission or the voluntary arbitrator awarded him $60,000 disability benefit. If the company questions the claim before the higher courts, the seafarer can only immediately execute the amount of $25,000 as this is an undisputed amount. A writ of execution for monetary awards that are not immediately executory shall only be issued if the seafarer posts a sufficient bond to ensure the full restitution of those amounts, and the bond shall be maintained by the seafarer until final resolution of the appeal or judicial review. The owner shall immediately reimburse the total amount paid by the seafarer for the cost of the bond if the Court of Appeals or Supreme Court decides in favor of the seafarer. However, the seafarer is not entitled to reimbursement if he loses the appeal. The Department of Labor and Employment, National Labor Relations Commission, and the National Conciliation and Mediation Board, in consultation with the Maritime Industry Tripartite Council of the Department of Migrant Workers, shall promulgate necessary rules and procedures to ensure the fair, speedy, equitable, and just disposition and execution of the decisions granting awards. On the transitory provisions, number 1, non-diminution of rights, privileges, and benefits previously enjoyed prior the effectivity of RA 12021, which is on October 12, 2025, and recognition of rights, privileges, and benefits previously enjoyed prior to the effectivity of RA 12021. The Maritime Higher Education Institution, in collaboration with Marina and the Commission on Higher Education, has to issue the transition plan. Section 59 RA 12021, that's the complaints filed prior the effectivity of the law shall be governed by laws prevailing then. Complaints filed on or after the implementation, the effectiveness of RA 12021 shall be governed by the new law. That's the end of my presentation. And if you have any question, I'm open to answer it. Thank you.
Ronald, thank you very, very much. It is an interesting document, which I believe a lot of people were waiting for, and especially with your explanation, it became pretty clear. Having said that, I've got a few questions for you, which I received from people here, and I've got my questions as well. First of all, at the very early stages of your presentation, one of the rights of the seafarers was the legal representation. I suspect you may not have an answer immediately, but it's extremely interesting in the criminalization cases of the seafarers when we are talking about the legal representation outside of the Philippines. For example, in Mexico case or in a Turkish case, does it mean that seafarer will have access to extremely expensive lawyers local to the case, somebody who would actually take his side and defend him in Filipino seafarer, for example, in Mexico or in Turkey? Or are we talking about the legal representation in Philippines alone?
Well, we're talking also about legal representation in foreign countries outside of the Philippines. So it is the responsibility of the Philippine government to provide assistance to Filipinos in distress, or those Filipino that have that are facing charges against them.
Wow, then I'm very envy. That is absolutely putting Filipinos way ahead of any other nationality of seafarers. Okay, let me digest that. That's brilliant information actually for us here who are advocating for the criminalization of seafarers, because one of the things is that P&I clubs are not necessarily representing seafarers in those cases, and especially when there is a conflict of interest between the owner and seafarer. That is groundbreaking. Thank you. And abandonment now, moving on to it. I have studied statistics of abandonment, especially in regards to the nationality, the structure of people being abandoned. And I have to admit that there is not that many Filipino seafarers being abandoned in context of other nationalities, Sri Lankans, Ukrainians, Indians, and even Poles. And I wonder are you keeping statistics? Are there statistics in Philippines showing how many seafarers were abandoned over the years, for example? Ronald, do you know where to get them from?
Cuba, as per your information, I'm a director of the Joint Manning Group. That's the aggregation of 6 mining association in the Philippines, and we are regularly asking our members if they have any issues with regards to their crew being abandoned. And so far, in our association or in our group, we do not have any issue on abandonment. That
That
I
is
can say because that is always part of our discussion. The issues on abandonment, the issues on piracy, the issue on vessels being attacked in the Red Sea. So these are the things that we are always looking at so that we can assist each other, and if there's a need, we approach the government to assist our seafarers as well.
Well, that's a great testimony for your organization, providing obviously people are not shy to report. But let's trust, and definitely if there wasn't a case, sooner or later you will learn, because the social media will report, and you will probably question your own fellow members saying, why didn't you report? Because this is absolutely great deterrent, I suppose, or showing that actually proper legal framework is able to defend seafarers or prevent them joining very questionable owners who might with potential to abandon. So thank you. I'll open the floor. Anybody, any other questions? We've got golden opportunity actually to find out. Obviously, if you are surprised by some of the information you receive, you're more than welcome to send us a message later. And I would definitely ask you to, once the recording of this meeting is available, please share it with your appropriate departments who may need to review what we were saying and what we were talking about. But nevertheless, I'm opening the floor. Any questions? Any comments? No. Ronald, you must have exhausted all the questions before they even happened. Thank you. That's brilliant. I really appreciate that. And I learned a lot today, I have to say. I knew some changes were coming, but I didn't know how far they could go. And with your detailed explanation, I think I got a better grasp of that. And it's always very interesting for me, actually, when talking to other nationalities and other nations, to see how far they are going with the legal framework for the seafarers. And I have to admit that Philippines, you guys are rocking at the moment, definitely. And that is, it shouldn't be a surprise, because you are the provider of most of our seafarers. And it's very nice to see, actually, that you're leading by example. So, Ronald, please convey our thanks. This is great. I really appreciate that. And coming back to the business of Intermanager.
Cuba,
Yes.
Cuba, can I ask a favor from the intermanager?
Yes.
At the moment, we are reviewing the standard employment contract of the Filipino seafarers, as well as the sea-based rules of the Department of Migrant Workers. We have one issue that we are contesting with in the draft standard employment contract and the draft sea-based rules. This is very important for us, especially for the owner, so that we can, if you can help us, because we have asked also the other association to write DMW to explain that particular section in the rule should not be finalized.
Okay.
To cite you the issue, yeah.
I would need more. If you could email me precisely what we are talking about and what is your requirement, then I will definitely help with that and consult our members.
Yeah. Just a quick one, just for the information of those who are
Yeah.
present today. There is a drop in the rules for seafarers who were detained because of illegal activities, that that the crew should still be paid while in detention until the final judgment is decided.
But I was carefully listening when you are explaining Magna Carta, and I thought this was actually already there. So obviously we need to take it, and I need to digest it further. So Ronald,
Yeah.
by all
I
means,
will send you an email on
send
that,
me.
Scuba. Yeah.
Very good, and then I will digest that again, because obviously devil sleeps in details, and there's no doubt that's what you are talking about, and we would be very happy to help.
Yeah,
Thank
because we
you.
want to protect the owners as well as we want to protect the seafarers. It should be a level playing field.
Absolutely, absolute and transparent. So that would
Yes.
help both sides, indeed. Very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I've got somebody here. Shurabak,
So,
please.
hi, I am from Colombia. Sorry for my throat today. I'm not so well. But just one quick question. What about, okay, this draft which you are saying for the detained seafarers? Uh, like, what type of wages does it talk? Let's say the trial goes on in some countries. Let's say they were caught due to certain illegal substance which was found, and
Mhm.
to the judgment, in many countries it might go for years. And then what
Yes.
kind of salaries are they talking about? Even if it is approved in the current form.
They're talking about the basic salary.
Okay, and forever till the time the final, either they are convicted or
Yeah,
given
until final conviction, which we are questioning because
Or released.
what's the point of having the list of violations and penalties if they will not implement that? Because if you are caught smuggling drugs or pilferage, the master can send you home, or if the authorities caught you, then you will be in jail. Well, of course, there will be trials, but our point is, uh, if you continue paying the seafarer who committed illegal activities, because they will not be arrested, they will not be detained if there are no prima facie evidence. So that's our point.
I think I welcome this because we had so many cases when the seafarers were jailed. Take La Sota case in Mexico for 20 months. And why shouldn't he be paid? He was acting on behalf of the owner, managers, and everything. And after 20 months of absolutely unnecessary jail, he was released because they couldn't find anything. And he was paid. In this case, he was definitely paid. So this is when we are obviously fighting, I would use this word, for decriminalization of seafarers and fair treatment. You are not guilty until proven so. And because of that, I think all of us on this call would like to be treated that way. If I'm acting on behalf of Intermanager who sends me somewhere and I have done absolutely nothing wrong but find myself in jail, then why should my family suffer?
Well, I
Then
got your
I
point.
only,
Kuba, I got your
yeah,
point. Our point here, if it's job related
yeah,
to your function on board, then he should be compensated. But if it
absolutely,
is an illegal activity, like carrying drugs, which is not
absolutely.
actually part of your work, and that's a crime, then why would we give him that
No,
compensation?
absolutely. That's it. Clear cut for me as well.
Yes.
Okay, Sarah, thank you for asking. Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you, Ronald and Cuba. Thanks.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I've got no further business for today. Just watch out because it will take me probably an hour and a half to transcribe and prepare the recording of this. It will be sent to all of you on the call, and then be prepared. And within day or two, there will be more 60-minute meetings appointments sent to all of you, followed by the message as well. I'm opening the floor for any other business. Not seeing anything. I would like to call this meeting to close. Thanking everybody for being with us today, and I'll see you shortly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Nice day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.